Nerd Rage Renegades.
Welcome to Renegade Gaming, where today we're going to be taking a look at one of the lesser talked about games from the great Capcom Disney marriage. We're going to be talking about Darkwing Duck on the Nintendo Entertainment System.
That's right, Darkwing Duck, released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1992. This is an adventure platformer where you take on the role of the Duck Knight himself as he goes around to save Saint Canard from the evil clutches of the organization known as F.O.W.L. The game consists of 7 stages, each in a different location around Saint Canard. At the beginning of the game, you start out with a selection of 3 levels, with 3 additional levels opening up after the initial 3 have been defeated. Once you've traversed the initial 6 levels and defeated the bosses, the final level, F.O.W.L's Floating Fortress, will open up to you for the final confrontation with Steelbeak. However, getting to the Floating Fortress is no easy task, as many of Darkwing's signature rogues are blocking your way, such as Bushroot, Quackerjack, Megavolt, and the Liquidator. But luckily, Darkwing has many different abilities in his arsenal to help him traverse the stages and deal with these villains. First is the gas gun. This is your primary weapon. While this is Darkwing's main mode of attack in the game, it does sometimes make you wish that you had a turbo controller, because some of the enemies may be so close that it's hard to get off enough shots without busting your thumb on the controller. So for some of these stages, I highly recommend an NES Advantage or an NES Max to maximize your shooting capabilities within the game. Along the way, you'll find power-ups for your gas gun, which will augment it with different abilities. There are 3 different types of gas within the game. There's the Thunder Gas, which fires 2 thunderbolts diagonally, the Heavy Gas, which falls to the ground and shoots out horizontally in both directions, and finally the Arrow Gas, which you can use to shoot an arrow into the walls, which will allow you to jump to higher platforms. This is useful a lot to get to those hard-to-reach 1-ups. He can also use his cape to deflect projectiles, which comes in handy against some enemies in the stages. Darkwing can also jump onto floating ledges to help him traverse gaps. This is a technique that must be mastered in order to get through some of the stages. I'm going to tell you, this is one of my favorite games for the Nintendo. I used to play this all the time, and I really feel kind of sad, because a lot of people, when they talk about the Capcom and Disney games, most of the time they talk about DuckTales or Rescue Rangers, and most of the time Darkwing is just left out of the whole equation. But if you want to talk about a good platformer that is fun, enjoyable, and also has some of the most kick-ass music on the Nintendo, you're talking about Darkwing Duck. There wasn't a kid I knew that didn't love this cartoon. It had everything for you, and so does this game. While some of the gameplay mechanics may seem repetitive from level to level, such as jumping on ledges and shooting some of the same enemies over and over again, they do try to mix it up. Like in Bushroot's stage, there are these weird dogs inside of dog houses attacking you. And even in the final stage, there are these Terminator ducks. I guess even Arnold wanted to get in on the action of Darkwing Duck. No matter how you look at it, though, this is just one of those great games from Capcom based off the Disney Afternoon properties. And these games very rarely missed. Even the sequels to some of the other games were just as good as the originals. Sadly, Darkwing never got a sequel on the Nintendo, although this game was ported to the Game Boy a year later in 1993, and there was a very lackluster TurboGrafx 16 game. But seeing as how I don't have a TurboGrafx 16, I can't show you any of the gameplay here. Maybe one day. Watching this video, some of you may have noticed that the gameplay is very similar to Mega Man. Well, being made by Capcom, you can understand why to make this game they probably did go to a Mega Man engine. And for me, that fits well with Darkwing. The way the levels are laid out and the bosses and the boss battles, it really is a Mega Man game at its core. But it's more than that. Darkwing Duck is about beating the odds. It's about being an underdog but raising up to become something more, and that's what Darkwing was. He was that cartoon of a guy who wanted to be a hero. And he was doing it for fame and fortune. He was doing it because he wanted the glory. And luckily, he also got a great video game out of it. Recently, WayForward released DuckTales Remastered. Now, I would love it if they would also bring back an updated Darkwing Duck and did what they did with DuckTales and get the full voice actors back. Just to hear Darkwing say, "Let's get dangerous," one more time would be music to my ears. So if you're a retro gamer and you have a Nintendo Entertainment System, highly recommend going out and finding Darkwing Duck. Now, I'll be honest with you though, Darkwing is not a cheap game to find. There are a few on eBay that are under $10, but most people are asking anywhere from 20 to 30 to 40 bucks just for the cartridge alone. However, to me it's worth it. If you can find a good price one on eBay and not one that some dude's selling for $86.99, yeah, dude, understood, you've got an instruction in a box. Still, $86.99? You have got to be kidding me. Even so, there are some cheap ones on eBay, so pick up a copy of Darkwing Duck. And if you can't get the Nintendo, you can always pick up the Game Boy.